Hi, I'm Mary Karr.
I'm Christopher Robinson.
And this is Poetry Fix. That's a James Bond move. Today's poem comes from Seamus Heaney. It's one of my favorite poems. He's a Nobel laureate, of course. He's from Northern Ireland. Digging. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, as snug as a gun. Under my window, a clean, rasping sound when the spade sinks into gravelly ground. My father, digging. I look down till his straining rump among the flower beds bends low, comes up 20 years away, stooping in rhythm through potato drills where he was digging. The coarse boot nestled on the lug. The shaft against the inside knee was levered firmly. He rooted out tall tops, buried the bright edge deep, to scatter new potatoes that we picked, loving their cool hardness in our hands. By God, the old man could handle a spade, just like his old man. My grandfather could cut more turf in a day than any other man on Toner's bog. Once I carried him milk in a bottle, corked sloppily with paper. He straightened up to drink it, then fell to right away, nicking and slicing neatly, heaving sods over his shoulder, going down and down for the good turf, digging. The cold smell of potato mold, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge through living roots awaken in my head. But I've no spade to follow men like them. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests. I'll dig with it.
I love the way the environment always seems to creep into Heaney's head. You know, every time he presents this sort of landscape, the bog, the peat, and everything. You know, it's almost like those bog people poems, where you feel the roots and things like coming up inside his own consciousness. That's how much he seems to internalize this landscape that he's a part of.
It's weird because he is a psychological poet. He's not saying, ooh, my daddy's big and scary. He's not saying any sort of predictable psychoanalytic gobbledygook, but he is evoking that way we feel connected to the people who came before us, and that sort of, that deep sense of connection through history, right? This just comes one parent at a time. It winds up having that feeling, right?
Yeah. To end a poem with this idea of, this is very classic Ars Poetica, right? It ends with the pen, I'll dig with it, right? It's hard not to make that cliche, and I think he earns it more than any other poem that attempts to do this.
The squat pen rest, he says in the beginning, snug as a gun.
Yeah, it's much more complicated than a simple, you know.
And it's just the language is so rich. You're like in that potato field. You know, there's nothing wrong with being able to draw reality so vividly that you suddenly can imagine cutting sod and throwing it over your shoulder and drinking milk corked with paper, right? So all that said, good for you, Seamus Heaney. Digging is from his collected poems from Farrar, Straus, and Giroux. I'm Mary Karr.
I'm Christopher Robinson.
This is Poetry Fix.